But companies like Nike, they might let you feel like you're the one in control of the creative process, feel like you're in control of holding things up. But in reality, there is a bigger picture to be painted. We talked about this with the WNBA and their treatment of Caitlin Clark. Now Nike finds themselves in the crosshairs.
Fair enough, right? The creative process takes time. Designing a signature shoe isn't something you rush. Except Nike isn't some small startup learning as they go. This is the company that had LeBron James merchandise in stores within months of his rookie season. The company that built entire marketing campaigns around athletes before they ever played a professional game. So when the biggest star in women's basketball history completes her rookie season and there's still no commercial, no signature line, no real marketing push whatsoever, you have to ask the obvious question, what's actually causing the delay?
Nike is being investigated by the federal government over allegations of systemic race discrimination against white workers, including through its DEI initiatives. Nike told Front Office Sports, quote, "This feels like a surprising and unusual escalation." Let's get right to the press release from the EEOC. Federal agency seeks court order for information related to...
Now we have an answer, and it's not the one Nike wants you to hear. On March 2025, the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission filed an enforcement action in federal court to compel Nike to produce information related to allegations of systemic race discrimination against white workers. Not a random complaint from a disgruntled employee. A federal investigation into company-wide patterns spanning multiple years. The EEOC is specifically investigating whether Nike engaged in what they call a pattern or practice of disparate treatment against white employees, applicants, and training program participants in hiring, promotion, demotion, and separation decisions.
You think if these allegations are happening at the base level, the hiring level, the training level, the promotion level, it's not happening at the marketing level, it's not happening at the, okay, well, she might be the biggest star, but DEI initiative, we got to put this person in front instead. DEI initiative, we got to put this shoe at the back burner and put this shoe at the forefront. DEI initiative, we can't waste our resources making a commercial.
That's the critical question, isn't it? Because if these allegations are proven true at the hiring level, the training level, the promotion level, the layoff selection level, then why would anyone assume it stops there? Marketing departments don't exist in a vacuum. The same corporate culture that allegedly determines who gets hired and who gets promoted also determines which athletes get pushed, which products get priority, and where resources get allocated. And suddenly, the year-and-a-half wait for a Caitlin Clark t-shirt starts looking less like a creative delay and more like a deliberate choice.
For the biggest star, we can't do that. We have to put all of our resources in the... Let's give the benefit of the doubt for the shoe. Could this explain why the merch took for so long? We have Caitlin Clark merch over here. The sweater, the hoodie, the pants, the fleece, whatever. Yeah, I bought it for my wife. She loves it. Very comfortable. Not 2-year wait comfortable. Nothing groundbreaking. It's nice material. It's good stuff. Why didn't this come out her rookie season? Oh, because we were waiting on the logo. Oh, that's right. We were waiting on the logo.
Let's talk about that merch for a second, because the timeline matters. Caitlin Clark signed her Nike deal before the 2024 WNBA season. She proceeded to have the most dominant rookie campaign in league history, broke the single-season assist record, led the Indiana Fever to their first playoff appearance in 8 years, generated television ratings that tripled the league average, created a cultural phenomenon that had arenas selling out across the country. And Nike's first official Caitlin Clark product, a t-shirt with a list of records on the back, released in late 2024. After waiting over a year, that's what they delivered. The most uninspired, low-effort design you could possibly imagine for the athlete who saved their entire WNBA investment.
We don't know how long they decided on the logo and then waited and waited and waited and waited and then put out the merch. We don't know. We just don't know. Information related to the company's tracking and use of worker race and ethnicity data, including as a factor in setting executive compensation, and information about 16 programs which allegedly provided race-restricted mentoring, leadership, or career development opportunities. When the company failed to produce all the information sought by
the logo excuse falls apart under the slightest scrutiny because we don't actually know when that logo was finalized. We don't know how long it sat on someone's desk waiting for approval. We don't know how many meetings it went through, how many times it got hooshed to the bottom of the priority list, how many other projects got greenlit while Caitlin Clark's branding sat in limbo. What we do know is that Nike has launched entire product lines faster than this. We know they've built marketing campaigns for athletes with a fraction of Clark's impact in a fraction of the time. So either Nike suddenly forgot how to do the thing they've been doing for 40 years, or something else was happening behind the scenes.
Subpoena, the agency filed an enforcement action in federal court. Shout out to John the Liquidator. He's been talking about this for quite some time, mainly concerning the WNBA, but we see it show up in other places. Quote, when there are compelling indications, including corporate admissions in extensive public materials, that an employer's diversity, equity, and inclusion related programs may violate federal prohibitions against race discrimination or other forms of unlawful discrimination, the EEOC will take all necessary steps.
Here's what the EEOC subpoena is requesting. Information going back to 2018, criteria used in selecting employees for layoffs, the company's tracking and use of worker race and ethnicity data, how race factors into setting executive compensation, details on 16 specific programs that allegedly provided race-restricted mentoring, leadership, and career development opportunities. This isn't a fishing expedition. Federal agencies don't file enforcement actions in court unless they've already found compelling evidence. The EEOC chair, Charlotte Burrows, stated explicitly, when there are compelling indications, including corporate admissions in extensive public materials, that an employer's diversity, equity, and inclusion-related programs may violate federal prohibitions against race discrimination. The EEOC will take all necessary steps.
Now, this is a chart that's floating around here. Nike's U.S. workforce underwent dramatic shifts at every level. Net change in demographic makeup of U.S. workers from 2020 to 2021. We go all the way down. Source, Bloomberg News Analysis. Bloomberg News just so you guys know, Hunky Dory on Twitter didn't make this up. White, blue, Hispanic, green, teal, or teal.
Now look at this chart. This is Bloomberg News analysis of Nike's U.S. workforce demographic changes from 2020 to 21 year. At the executive level, white workers decreased while every other demographic increased. At the manager level, same pattern. At the professional level, same pattern. At less senior roles, same pattern. This isn't random variation. This is a systematic shift happening simultaneously across every level of the organization. And it's happening during the exact time period when Nike was implementing what they called their 2025 DEI targets. Those weren't suggestions. Those were numerical goals that the company was actively working to hit.
If things like this are happening at the base level, you don't think this is happening at the marketing level, the endorsement level, the who do we push level? Oh, they can offer all these players deals, so the other companies can't make money off of them. Doesn't mean I need to go out of my way and start pushing them. I'll just shelf you for a little bit. I'll put you on the shelf a little bit while I focus on some other targets. Focus on some other demographics. Again, we could give the benefit of the doubt for the shoe. Fine.
Think about what that means in practice. If you're a marketing executive at Nike, and your compensation is partially tied to hitting diversity targets, and those targets are measured by demographic percentages, then every decision you make gets filtered through that lens. Which athlete do we feature in the Super Bowl commercial? Which product line gets the biggest budget? Which signature shoe gets priority in the design pipeline? Those decisions aren't just about who's the biggest star or who's selling the most shoes anymore. They're about hitting your numbers. They're about making sure your team's demographic breakdown matches the targets that corporate set. And if the biggest star in women's basketball doesn't help you hit those targets, well, maybe her shoe can wait another year.
Especially coming from Nike. I said earlier, we have some Caitlin Clark merch over here. Nice stuff. The black is heavy. The gray is light. Perfect. We're in the Northeast over here. Works out great. What took so long for that? Interesting. A certain superstar in the WNBA.
Here's the contrast that's impossible to ignore. A'ja Wilson, the 2024 WNBA MVP, got a signature shoe. Angel Reese, who had a solid but not historic rookie season, got Gator marketing push. Sabrina Ionescu, an established star, got featured campaigns. All deserving athletes, all legitimately talented, but none of them generated the cultural impact, the television ratings, or the financial windfall that Caitlin Clark created for the WNBA and its partners. Yet Clark's the one who waited over a year for basic merchandise. She's the one whose signature shoe still doesn't have a release date. She's the one who didn't get the commercial during her record-breaking rookie season. The business case for pushing Caitlin Clark was overwhelming. The return on investment was obvious. So if business logic didn't drive the decision, what did?
They sure got pushed really hard by Nike. And it kind of adds up a little bit if you think about it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, I'd appreciate that.
Nike's response to the federal investigation is telling. They told Front Office Sports that this feels like a surprising and unusual escalation. Not these allegations are false. Not we're confident our practices comply with federal law, just that it feels surprising and unusual. That's the response of a company that knows exactly what investigators are going to find. Because here's the thing about DEI programs that use numerical targets based on race. They're illegal. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act is colorblind. It prohibits race-based employment discrimination regardless of which race is being discriminated against. You cannot legally make hiring, promotion, or compensation decisions based on meeting demographic quotas. Companies have known this for decades, but somewhere along the way, Nike apparently decided that calling it diversity targets instead of quotas would provide legal cover. It didn't. The EEOC investigation centers on whether Nike's DEI programs crossed the line from aspirational goals into actual discrimination. And the evidence they're seeking suggests they already have reason to believe that line was crossed. When you're requesting data on how race factors into executive compensation, that's not a preliminary inquiry. That's building a case. When you're demanding information on 16 specific programs that allegedly restricted opportunities based on race, you've already identified the violation. You're just gathering the documentation to prove it in court. Now let's connect this back to Caitlin Clark, because this isn't just about hiring practices or promotion decisions. This is about how a corporate culture that prioritizes demographic targets over merit affects every level of decision-making. If Nike's HR department was making hiring decisions based on hitting racial percentages, why would their marketing department operate any differently? They're part of the same company, following the same corporate directives, trying to hit the same DEI targets that leadership set. And those targets matter. According to the EEOC filing, Nike tied executive compensation to meeting diversity goals. That means the people making decisions about which athletes to feature, which products to prioritize, and where to allocate marketing budgets had a financial incentive to consider demographics in those decisions. Not just performance, not just cultural impact, not just return on investment, demographics. So when Caitlin Clark signs with Nike before her rookie season and the marketing team sits down to plan the rollout, they're not just asking how do we maximize this opportunity, they're also asking how does this affect our diversity number? And if pushing Clark doesn't help them hit their targets, if it doesn't contribute to the demographic percentages that their bonuses are tied to, then suddenly there's a reason to delay, to deprioritize, to focus resources elsewhere. Look at what actually happened. No commercial during her rookie season, despite record-breaking viewership. No signature shoe despite unprecedented demand. No significant merchandise despite fans literally begging for products to buy. The first official Caitlin Clark Nike product was that lazy t-shirt, with records listed on the back, released after the season ended, after the cultural moment had already peaked. That's not a company maximizing its investment. That's a company fulfilling a contractual obligation with minimum effort. And here's what makes it even more damning. Nike knew what they had to know. The television ratings were public. The attendance figures were undeniable. The social media engagement was measurable. The financial impact on the WNBA was documented. Every single metric that Nike uses to evaluate athlete marketability was screaming that Caitlin Clark was a generational opportunity. But they sat on it, they waited, they let that rookie season pass without capitalizing on the momentum. Compare that to how Nike has historically handled superstar athletes. When LeBron James was a rookie in 2003, Nike didn't have him under contract initially. Reebok did. But Nike learned from that mistake. When they signed Kevin Durant, when they signed Kobe Bryant, when they signed any athlete they believed could be transformational, they moved fast. They built campaigns, they created signature they invested resources immediately because they understood that momentum matters, that cultural moments don't wait, that you have to strike while the athlete is hot. They knew how to do this. They've done it dozens of times, but with Caitlin Clark, they did it. And now we have a federal investigation revealing that the company was allegedly making employment decisions based on race across every level of the organization during that exact time period. That's not a coincidence. The EEOC investigation specifically mentions Nike's. Those were public goals that Nike announced as part of their commitment to diversity. On the surface, they sounded progressive. Increase representation of women and minorities at all levels, create pathways for underrepresented groups, build a more inclusive culture. But the implementation is where things went wrong. Because if you set numerical targets and tie compensation to hitting those targets, you've created a system that requires discrimination. You've made it financially beneficial for managers to consider race in every decision. And that system doesn't just affect who gets hired. It affects everything. Which products get developed, which athletes get featured, which marketing campaigns get funded. Because the same executives making those decisions are the ones whose bonuses depend on hitting demographic targets. They're not operating in separate worlds. The culture that allegedly led to discrimination in hiring is the same culture making decisions about athlete marketing. Think about the position this puts Caitlin Clark in. She signed what was reported as an 8-year, $28 million deal with Nike. That's a massive contract, the kind that should come with massive support. But support isn't just about the dollar amount. It's about the company actually investing in building your brand, creating your products, putting resources behind your marketing. And by that measure, Nike hasn't held up their end. They've paid her, sure, but they haven't built her brand the way they've built other athletes' brands. They haven't given her the platform that her performance and impact deserved. And she can't exactly call them out publicly, can she? She's under contract for 8 years. She needs Nike to eventually deliver on the signature shoe, the marketing campaigns, the brand building that the contract promise. So, she has to smile and say things like, the creative process takes time, even though she knows Nike has launched entire product lines faster than they've launched her t-shirt. She has to be patient and professional, while watching other athletes get the push that her numbers say she should be getting. That's what makes this federal investigation so important. Because it's not just about Nike's employment practice, it's about whether a culture of race-based decision-making has infected every level of the company, including how they treat their athletes. It's about whether the biggest star in women's basketball got sidelined, not because of business reasons, not because of creative delays, but because pushing her didn't help Nike hit their diversity targets. The EEOC is going to find out. They're requesting data going back to 2018, which means they'll see exactly how Nike's practices changed after they implemented their DEI programs. They'll see who got hired, who got promoted, who got laid off, and what role race played in those decisions. They'll see whether the demographic shifts in Nike's workforce were the result of expanded opportunity or systemic discrimination. And if they find what the evidence suggests they're going to find, Nike is going to face serious consequences. But here's what won't happen. Caitlin Clark won't get those 18 months back. She won't get another rookie season where Nike could have capitalized on the unprecedented attention she brought to women's basketball. That moment is gone. The cultural phenomenon of her first WNBA season happened without Nike really participating in it. They were passive beneficiaries of her success rather than active partners in building it. And that's the real cost of prioritizing demographics over merit, of letting DEI targets drive business decisions, of creating a corporate culture where executives are financially incentivized to consider race in every choice they make. You don't just end up with discrimination in hiring and promotion. You end up with bad business decisions. You end up sitting on your hands while the biggest marketing opportunity in women's sports history plays out without you. You end up being investigated by the federal government because your programs were so blatantly discriminatory that they couldn't be ignored. So was it worth it, Nike? Was hitting your 2025 diversity targets worth potentially violating federal civil rights law? Was it worth fumbling the Caitlin Clark opportunity? Was it worth the federal investigation, the legal fees, the reputational damage, and the possibility of serious penalties? Because that's what you're facing now. And the answer seems pretty obvious. What do you think? Does this investigation explain Nike's bizarre handling of their biggest women's basketball star? Or is this all just coincidence and bad timing? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and let's see where this federal investigation leads, because something tells me we're just getting started.